So a little earlier today, Matt Lafleur had a talk with some reporters at the official NFL league meeting that has happened the past couple of days. And he had some pretty high praise for Romeo Doubs, who just came off his rookie year heading into year two. And I want to read that and give my thoughts on what Matt Lafleur had to say. He said this. Here it is from Ryan Wood on Twitter. Matt Lafleur on Romeo Doubs. I want to timber this comparison, but he's got some Davante Adams-like movement skills. Now he's got to learn how to use it and when to harness it. There isn't a route he can't run. So to hear Matt Lafleur give Romeo Doubs the praise to say that he has Davante Adams-like movement skills, this isn't something Matt Lafleur has to say. And I know at times people say, well, is he going to come out and say, like, this guy's terrible? Probably not. You probably don't do that as a head coach. But at the same time, you don't have to come out here and say that he did say, I'm trying to temper this comparison so people don't basically run with it. But here I am running with it because why not? It's very exciting. But he's basically saying that he has some skills like Davante Adams had, and he needs to work on it and harness it. And so I think when we look at this Packers offense heading into 2023, I'm honestly not that worried. And maybe I should be worried. Maybe I'm just too optimistic of a Packers fan with Jordan Love coming in. And obviously the way that Jordan Love plays is going to drastically change, the kind of season Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson have. If he comes in, plays great, those guys probably have a pretty solid year. If he comes in, plays poorly, those guys may have an average year. But I think when we look at rookie receivers, there's no question going from year one to year two, regardless of where you are in the league, you're probably going to take some kind of jump forward. Year one, you come in, you're learning the system, you're figuring out how the NFL works. But then after the first season, you have an entire year under your belt, and then you come into year two, you have an entire off season. Don't have to deal with, the combine, the draft, all those things. You can just focus on your craft and really work on the things that you need to work on to get better. And so to hear Matt Lafleur give Romeo Doubs his praise has me pretty excited as we, head into the second year for both Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, two guys who I think we saw lots of sparks from in their first year with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Especially Romeo Doubs in training camp. It felt like day after day he was making huge plays in training camp last year in 2022. And so I do think when you look at this Packers offense, one thing that maybe we could be underestimating is the jump that not only Romeo Doubs is going to make, but also Christian Watson going from year one to year two. And just for comparison, I want to show you Davante Adams' rookie year stats. Here it is, 2014, 16 games played, 38 receptions, 446 yards, and then 3 touchdowns. And here we have Romeo Doubs, 13 games, so 3 less than Davante, 42 receptions, 4 more than Davante, 425 yards, so 20 yards less, and then the same amount of touchdowns at 3 touchdowns. So I'm not saying that Doubs is going to become, Davante Adams, but at the same time, when you look at Davante year one, it's not like Davante came in year one and completely dominated. Even if we look at year two, Davante wasn't the leading receiver on the Packers. There were some other pretty solid weapons there in his second year in 2015. But year two for Davante, 483 receiving yards. If we look at the 3 players actually ahead of him in receiving yards that year in Green Bay, James Jones, 890 yards, Randall Cobb, 829 yards, and then tied in Richard Rodgers, 510 yards. So there were basically 2 or 3 guys ahead of him when it came to receiving that year. But then if we look at the Packers going into 2023, Lazard is no longer here. Randall Cobb will likely not be here going into 2023. He could end up with the Jets if Rodgers and them get all that sort of situated and figured out. And so Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs seem to be the top weapons here heading into 2023. We'll see if the Packers decide to make any other moves for any kind of veterans or I'd assume they'd add some weapons here in the draft, hopefully. But Watson and Doubs are going to have lots of work this year. No really competition in their way whatsoever. And so I think when you look at the Packers and their plan potentially for the next few years, Brian Gutekunst has to know that 2023, I don't think you're really expecting to go deep in the playoffs. Obviously, you hope that could happen. You never know what could happen if things start clicking. But I feel like for Brian Gutekunst, the first year of Jordan Love, all you want to see is, a solid year, not a terrible year. It doesn't have to be insanely great, but at the same time, it would just be nice to see a pretty somewhat solid year, maybe, average, and then you can improve going forward from that point on. And so with both Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, they can grow together with Jordan Love in his first season, and then going into 2024, those guys can take another leap forward, going into their second year with Jordan Love, and hopefully, of course, Love can take that step forward and really become a solid quarterback here in the league. But I do think when you look at this Packers offense, there are lots of really nice things already in place. If we look at last year at our offensive line, the Packers had the third best pass blocking grade in the NFL for your total offensive line according to PFF. and we pretty much have the same unit there going into 2023. So Love should have some solid protection. I still think we have one of the better, probably a top 5 backfields in the NFL with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I do think it could be nice to add, a tight end or a receiver in the draft. And I think once we have those pieces in place, if Love can, run the offense that Matt Lafleur wants him to run, which in the time he played in that game against the Eagles last year, his timing was on point. And so I think if the Packers can rely on the run, set up the play action pass, this offense, I think, can be a pretty good offense, honestly. But if you guys would like to stay up to date with all things Packers, Packers news, updates, all that stuff, I cover it all on this channel. So feel free to turn on the post notifications. So anytime I put out news, you get it sent directly to your phone right away, so you never miss any Packers news. But that is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.